Welcome to episode 177 of the Startup Show. Today, Thomas, who is the general partner at BlueOcean Ventures, is stopping by here at the studio. And we are talking about MedTech, we talk about his life, but we also talk about how the future of MedTech looks like. And maybe we also discuss about if the person who will be living forever is already alive or not. So make sure you stay tuned all the way till the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed. Welcome to episode 177 of the Startup Show. Today, again, we change the side of the table and we see how investors are thinking and how they're making decisions. And today, I'm very happy that Thomas, who is the general partner at BlueOcean Ventures, who is stopping by today at the studio. So welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you here. Thomas, as usual on the Startup Show, we give about a minute and a half for our guests to introduce themselves to my audience. So please take it away. Tell us about your impressive background.
Cedric, thank you very much for the invitation. By background, I'm an engineer and business. So I did electrical engineering and industrial engineering at the ETH Zurich, and then studied at the University St. Gallen technology management. And already for my PhD thesis, I was excited about analyzing and evaluation of technological capabilities in companies. Was actually my PhD theme. Then I had to find a great industry where I can apply all that knowledge, and I identified MedTech. I love life science because it's something it's not only a business case, but you're close to the people. You really have an impact on many. And what is interesting from a technology management, innovation point of view, it's very fragmented. So you have many little niches. It's high margins, fast development cycles, high grade of innovation, a lot of IP, a lot of regulatory environment. So it's very exciting as an investment.
Sure. I mean, you briefly mentioned kind of like why you do this, but maybe if we go back quickly to your education, you also spent some time at Harvard, if I saw correctly.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain a little bit like, what is the main or the key takeaway that you took from the academic world into the investor world?
You know, as a matter of fact, I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. While some of my friends decided to go straight forward to business school, I said, when I was 20 years old, no, I'm still interested in the technology aspect. That's why I wanted to start it off with an engineering degree. But my original plan was to do first an engineering degree and then just make an MBA. So it turned out a bit differently, but more or less I did what I intentionally wanted to do at the beginning. Already during my studies, I looked into these entrepreneurial aspects. So in actually 1990, when I was still a student at ETH, 1990, there was the big opening of Eastern Europe.
Yes.
And through my friend who was from Czechoslovakia, I had some possibilities to have access to cheap computer equipment. All the big suppliers were pushing to Eastern Europe. So I was re-importing computer equipment and was distributing that as a student. So that was kind of my first entrepreneurial experience.
Yes. What would you say is your key motivation now when you see all of these MedTech startups and you say it's sometimes hard because, everything is always a roller coaster, but what is it that keeps you really going in this investor world?
What is amazing is that it's a technology that touches people. As I said before, it's not just about making money, but it's about serving clinical unmet needs. It's one of the key aspects why population is doing better.
Let's talk about BlueOcean Ventures because I think it's a very interesting fund that you're doing here. So maybe first give a quick insights in kind of what you guys do. So we all understand kind of what your focus is and what your investment thesis is.
BlueOcean Ventures is a specialized MedTech investor. We invest all over Europe, but we have a special focus on Switzerland.
Yep.
We're an early stage investor. So in early stage, there is a big part of coaching also involved because by definition, at the beginning of these ventures, these startup companies, they're never complete. So the assessment, what the company needs and to coach them to get there is a very important aspect. BlueOcean Venture exists since 2008. We're currently investing from our second fund. And what is maybe interesting, how the company evolved, that it was originally founded by two individuals, Faris Sabeti and Emmanuel de Watteville, who are coming from the coaching environment. Faris Sabeti was a co-founder and vice chairman of CTI Startup, so what is today a InnoSwiss project. They started to invest with club deals in 2008, and they quickly realized that the most exciting deals are in MedTech. So they actually decided to bring in some new sector specialists. And so in 2011, Sasha Haimo joined. He's a diagnostica and drug development specialist. And then in 2014, I joined as a medical surgical specialist. I have over 20 years experience in MedTech. First 8 years, I made a corporate career, where at the end I was business unit president of Centropol Sulzer Medica for their spinal implant business in Europe. Then I started to invest in startup companies. I've founded and co-founded 4 MedTech companies and 1 biotech company.
What would you say, let's say, is kind of like the range of check sizes that you write in this early stage of a MedTech company?
It depends a bit on the stage. When it's a seed stage, a ticket can be as low as 200,000-300,000. When it's a Series A, it's more in the 500,000 to 1 million range. And over the life cycles, we deploy up to 2-3 million per portfolio company.
Maybe we talk a little bit about portfolio companies. I mean, like one of them is Ava, which maybe is one of the most prestigious one. And Leah was also on my show. We went together to high school. So very funny. But like maybe you can like elaborate a little bit on the other portfolios that like you have invested in.
Yeah, actually, Ava is one of our stars in our portfolio too, and we're very proud we invested in 2016. And then, in 2017 and 18, they became best startup in Switzerland, twice first ranked. So of course we were proud that we got involved before they were a superstar, which I think is a nice sign, and they're doing really an excellent job. They have a great management team there. Other portfolio companies were very close to the EPFL. So the Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, where we invest often in spin-offs. In one of them, it's called Reon Medical. They have the world's first adjustable glaucoma drainage device. So it's to regulate the too high pressure inside of your eye when drug therapies are not sufficient. The company is run by an EPFL professor. And I'm actually chairman of the board, so it's one of the signs that we show that we really get actively involved in these early stage companies, really help to manage them. I brought in through my network a senior ophthalmology industry expert with 20 years experience in large and small companies, Swiss guy, but dual nationality US. So these are the kind of resources we want to bring in to support our portfolio companies.
I mean, like you mentioned this, like hands-on, kind of like being involved in these companies. Not all companies want it. So you always take a board seat whenever you invest?
It depends on the ticket size and depends if you're lead investor or co-investor. If you're a lead investor, so it means we negotiate the terms, then we would sit on a board seat. If you're co-investors, we usually like to have observer rights. I'm actually an observer in the AVA as well. There it's just important that we have at any time we think it's needed full information access.
How many deals you're looking at every year? How many investments do you actually do? And what is very interesting, obviously from an entrepreneurial perspective, what is kind of like the time it takes you from the moment you hear of a case till you get to the decision?
So it's a very important point, because these early stage companies, the most important thing is that you have a relatively long observation period. So it's not something, even if it's early stage, you would not like to rush in. So that's, for us, it's very important. And MedTech entrepreneurs, if you hear me here, come and talk to us even before you form a company.
Yes.
We can help you to structure the business case. We can help you to set up the company. We like to get involved as early as possible. I think it's very important. For us, it's important that we have this observation period. As I said at the beginning, there are always things missing. But we also want to see, do you walk the talk? I mean, to write a great plan on paper is always easy, but then to execute on the deliverables is something different. And for us, it's important that we feel comfortable with the way the team and the business case is evolving. As I said, sometimes from a project up to then a company formation, seed round, Series A. One important thing for us, one thing I absolutely love to do, I'm also an MedTech expert entrepreneur at InnoSwiss,
Yes.
where I do 2-3 trainings with MedTech classes per year for specific topics. Organization development, regulatory strategy, IP strategy. What I love about these classes, then you act as with this group of entrepreneurs as partners.
Yes.
They listen to you, you discuss their business case. Because the problem is when you just meet them as an investor, they're always in the pitching mode. Just pitching for me as early stage partners. And another interview partner of you once said, well, it's not just like you put in a ticket and then you let go, but it's more a little bit like a marriage.
Yes.
And it's really we become as BlueOcean Ventures partner, we become part of the team.
Yeah.
And to become part of the team, it takes time to build confidence, to adjust, and to interact together successfully.
So how many cases do you see more or less per year, and do you invest in?
We have not a spray and pray approach. I know that you talk to others, they look at thousands of companies. We look at 200 deals a year, at 150 in Switzerland, and at 50 pre-selected deals all over Europe.
Yep.
For the European or outside of Switzerland deals, we have some partnership with other VC funds who are also MedTech sector specialists, but are more later stage investors. So they like, when we look at it, they see something interesting, but they said for them it's too early. So we look at it already and ultimately invest in 2 to 4 deals per year.
You know, there's many different types of VCs out there. Some of them, they're like kind of like industry agnostic. You chose the path of kind of like being very specific on MedTech. Where do you see, let's say, the advantages of being so specific on MedTech? I mean, like it narrows down kind of like, you know, the deal flow that you can get. But where do you see like the advantages?
MedTech at first is not something you can just come from university, you have your bachelor in business administration, and say, now I want to start my MedTech company. That's not how it works. MedTech is something where it's a lot of science behind. Usually need science and industry experience. You need to understand the regulatory environment. You need to understand quality management systems. There's so many aspects to it. What is nice about MedTech, although it's highly fragmented, and you think that a pacemaker has maybe not much to do with another sensory device, but nevertheless, they're regulated as MedTech devices. As such, they follow similar patterns.
Yeah.
So, and this experience to understand the environment is key because, as I said before, early stage companies, by definition, there's always something missing. They're usually strong in a certain field of technologies, but we often see that they do a technology push. They have a technology, they got some IP, we only invest companies who have IP patents. They don't create a solution, they have a technology and they're looking for a solution.
Yes.
And for this assessment, is it really something, the requirement specification of the product they have defined, is this really solving a clinical unmet need? If as investor you're not able to assess that with your investors, then you're lost.
Yes.
So I think it's very difficult, not only because the business models are changing, but because MedTech is not a spray and pray, because the individual deals take more attention, take more network. So you need to spend more time and should bring more experience to the table to invest successfully, especially for early stage companies.
You mentioned a couple of things already, but let's say you look at the deal closer and I'm coming to you with my deal and I want to get an investment from you. What is kind of like the due diligence that you're doing? Like what are kind of like the key points that like you need to have checked off, let's say, besides the legal and shareholder agreement, but let's say what are you looking from a technical perspective that is relevant for you to even consider this as an investment?
It is a process. So you go from high level, check the box thing to details. For us, it's very important. I know that larger structures, sometimes they use young analysts to see are the basic criteria met. But what is the funny thing is that actually by that, your junior analyst might eliminate an outlier just because he does not fit in the criteria, who will be the next super success. And that's why it's important that the partners are involved from the beginning. At BlueOcean Ventures, what we do, there is always one initial contact, but then there's a second partner put to the side, and the two of us, or two of them, make the first assessment. And then in the first assessment, you really go top down. It's does the business case hold? So business case means from, is there a market? Is the technology differentiated enough? Is there a clinical unmet need? Is there some IP that is actually has assigned or is owned exclusively by this company? The second part, of course, is the team. Is it not only a one-man show? Is it a real team? Is it solid enough? Are they mentally ready for investors?
Yes.
Because, mentally ready, I mean that they must have some investor relation skills, need to be able to talk to investors. They need to be willing to work very closely with investors. And last but not least, they should be excited and work with investors to make a lot of money at the exit. When you go down the process, of course, then there's a series of interviews, you meet the team. For some specific cases, we might pull in an external expert from our network. We usually get, when it's a medical device, we get the later users involved. So people we know that later on could become part of their medical advisory board. So get these guys involved as early as possible. That's already due diligence stage. And at the end, it's agree on the terms. But if you have difficulties to agree on terms, it's a very bad sign.
Yes.
I mean, if deals who fail at this stage, it's actually a good thing that they fail.
Yes. Because I guess the human interaction is then not exactly what you're looking for.
Yes.
I want to point out one thing that you said about making sure that the founders know about the exit strategy. How can you assess this willingness to sell the company, or at least understand their ambition? What are these questions that you're asking in these interaction with the entrepreneurs?
Well, the first question is just ask the entrepreneur the questions: to whom will you sell this company? And what kind of criteria do you think must be met that this company is actually sellable? And just by his reflection, if he's not prepared, he does not know the industry, if he does not know what these guys actually will be looking for, it means he has not put enough thought into it.
Yes, interesting. Very interesting. I want to go quickly into a very different topic, BlueOcean Ventures token. Just quickly, because you started this whole process way before the crypto winter, I guess, before everybody was talking about STOs and all these different ICOs. Maybe you can elaborate quickly why you decided to do that and what your goal is with this token.
We were very excited about the idea to create a fully asset-backed token on our BlueOcean Venture 2 fund, because it gives the opportunity to make a highly attractive but completely illiquid asset like early stage venture capital,
yes,
where usually you're locked in for 10 years with hardly a possibility for a secondary as an LP, to make this a tradable token with relatively easy means. Compared to make an IPO that costs you millions of dollars, technically you can make an ICO for 100, 200,000 Swiss francs. And then, of course, you can spend whatever you want on marketing.
Yes.
But the technical thing that it actually works to set up the jurisdiction, the legal structure, all the technology in place that really hold can be done at a reasonable effort.
So how is it going?
We have started the project in 2018. Mm-hmm. We had the pre-sales period in the last 2-3 months of 2018. Now the fund is still open, and we plan to make a first token issuing event by the end of 2019. Now
I would like to shift the conversation a little bit more towards the industry that you're in, which is the MedTech. Maybe you can quickly paint us this picture of how you see the medical world, to the main pillars of the medical world in 15, 20 years from now? Kind of like what you are investing right now because you are envisioning the world in a certain way.
World of MedTech is incredibly transforming. I mean, today I would almost say you can do everything. It's just a question of time and money. When today you think of what can be done, and people think, well, by tomorrow we all walk around as cyborgs and our machine in hands and things like that. There's a part that will move much faster than other parts.
Yeah.
Things that will move incredibly is everything that can work with sensory device that use mass data approach, that use KI, machine learning, and create a new wealth of information for decision making out of massive data that is collected through all kinds of sensory devices. Implantables, non-implantables, no touch. I will explain. I have a company for you. You can present here in 6 months. It's mind-boggling what is happening there in that area.
Yes.
The area that will go much slower is everything that is like in real tissue engineering. Not only that's incredibly complicated and expensive, it's also so heavily regulated that the entire regulation puts a brake on these things. So until we have really fully functional nerve connection, muscle things that you really can take something out of the body, put the machine in between and make it completely functional again, or even do better than it was in the nature before, this will take more time. Here we're not talking about 5-10 years, we're talking about 20-30 years.
What about the whole CRISPR thing? Is this the gene? Is this part of the where you would say it's in your field, or it's more like into biotech?
We also have an attention on in vitro fertilization,
Yeah.
where we look at project viability of cells, things like that. This is a topic. Absolutely. I mean, to just modify genes to make a pick and choose menu, I think we're already there.
Yes.
There, it's more a question of what does the society want and what does the regulator want.
Yeah.
But I think technically, to tell, well, blue eyes, blonde, a bit taller, more muscles, higher IQ, I think we're already there.
Right.
All the analytics exist and the technologies exist.
Do you think the person who will live forever already is alive? Is this something that like I've heard a few times already, that like this like immortality is something that is very big into, let's say, specifically like celebrities in Hollywood, where they say like this is like the most important thing that they want to achieve? Is this something that you would see like also like happening in the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself why that's an ambition of people to live forever. I think they should maybe concentrate more on the moment and enjoy their daily life and don't want to take it going on forever. Is the person who will live forever already alive today? Probably yes, because I think the technology will get there that we can make with cell enhancements. I would say it's not an adult, but maybe the child is already born that could live forever just because we find out more about the mechanism what actually makes cell aging. And when we're able to reverse some of that processes and then replace some cell structure with new stem cell approaches. And the question is, how do we do that with, I would say, the more complex organs, like including the brain? The main problem today about aging is the aging of our vascular system. Because the vascular system, once all your cells are not optimally nourished anymore, that's when they start to degrade.
I would like to shift now again to a little bit of a new topic, which is kind of like the ecosystem here in Switzerland. Maybe you can quickly elaborate how you see the importance. I mean, like you said, like you are partnered up with EPFL, but maybe you can say, like, how do you see the academic world adding kind of like value to the MedTech world here in Switzerland?
I think there are two aspects to it. One thing is in Switzerland are not only the EPFL and the ETH, but we have a lot of other Fachhochschulen. There are a lot of other know-hows and drivers with very competent people. It's not only from the academic research, but it's also people who have decades of experience from the industry and then are moving around from one company to the other. Switzerland why Switzerland a good MedTech place? There are two countries who have a lot of MedTech density in Europe. One is Ireland and the other one is Switzerland. Ireland, it's more because of the US companies moved their operations there for tax benefits. And then when you look at rank number 3, which is about Germany, Switzerland has a 3 times higher MedTech density. So they're 10 times bigger, but they only have 3 times more MedTech than we have. So actually this density of MedTech activities combined with the strong universities and an entrepreneurial culture we have in Switzerland, which is stimulated that on startups we can make tax-free capital gains. So money is flowing in from angel investors. We have very good angel network, active angel networks in Switzerland. Where the sector is still underserved, as a matter of fact, is exactly in the segment where we are, in the early stage specialized investors. So you have a lot of angels. They can finance up to 1-2 million. Then you have, I would say, the big VCs, 100 million plus funds who want to deploy 5-10 million on a portfolio companies. And in between, there is this gap that is still unserved.
Where do you see, let's say, the startup ecosystem in the MedTech world in Switzerland compared on an international level from the content? So like from the people, from the ideas, and from the companies that are coming or like growing here in Switzerland compared to the international standards?
For European standards, we're very high. We're probably one of the best. There are areas, you know very well Israel, there are areas in the United States on the east and the west coast. I would not say that they're technically better. I'm not even sure whether the innovation is so much better, but the environment is sometimes better. As I said, we have a bit, they call this valley of depth, you know, where for this medium size, and MedTech is very niche. There are a lot of companies that need 3 to 5 million, and they are with the angels, and then they fall in a gap. They're too small for the big VCs. They're already too large for the angel networks. The angel networks cannot follow. Many of the angels, they just put one ticket, 50,000, but then they do not put 50,000 in every round. So they fall in this trap. One problem we have here in Switzerland, that from a financing perspective, is that the largest venture capital investor, and I'm talking about investment in VC funds in Europe, is the European Investment Fund. For whatever reason, Switzerland is not participating in that program. I want to set up a 100 million fund. I go to European Investment Fund. I pitch them. I tell, look, this is our track record, our experience. We're specialized. Are you ready to make an anchor investor? Say, sure, it's an underserved area. You have the track record, 30 million. At the condition that you're able to raise the 100. All great. So with this 30, you can make a tour, a roadshow, and try to collect the other 70s. Yes. The big issue is now that because this is European money, which is coming basically from the European Central Bank indirectly, they impose on you that twice as much. So when they put in 30, you need to deploy 60 million in Europe, which Switzerland makes not part of it. We have signed so many bilateral agreements between Switzerland and the European Union. I can really not believe that one wasn't signed, but it wasn't. That's one of the reasons why, for this early stage investors, we're still underserved in Switzerland.
You were recently at the Startup Days and you won the investor competition, which is kind of like the opposite of the pitch event that like startups usually do. So for one time, like they switch the sides where investors get up. You told me before you were inspired by Michael Sidler, who was on episode 75, who did a poem. So you did a rap. I'm not going to ask you to do the rap now, but like maybe you can quickly tell us like what impact winning this competition had for you.
The Startup Day in Bern is really to interact with people. And when you win a bottle of wine, you win a pitch. Then you have people coming talk to you and say, well done, Thomas. And it's just like I would say, you increase a bit your networking at this event. And people start to know you that maybe have not necessarily known you before.
Yeah. What is your vision for the Swiss startup ecosystem when you look at the MedTech area? If you had like, like this picture that we have to see and like, okay, like this is where you want to be, the whole pie, not just your pie as BlueOcean, but like how do you want it to look like the MedTech space in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years?
As I said, we have already a lot of the ingredients to make a great meal. One of the ingredients is still missing is there's certain funding gap. I think that InnoSwiss is doing an excellent job with these sector-specific training programs. We have a venture kick where companies can start to pitch super early. So we have this thing like coming from nowhere, just with the idea, to bring it to a company, to bring it to a seed round. There we have a lot of support. Beside the gap of the financing, the other things I would like to see improve is then really the full commercialization, because it should be in the interest of Switzerland that we not only build great startups and once they make $1 million turnover, we can sell them for 50 million to a Chinese buyer, and then they benefit of all the development. But we should try to build companies also here in Switzerland that we can scale, and of course will create a lot of jobs, will be outside of Switzerland. But nevertheless, I think we should not only build startups and exit them, but if I think much bigger than BlueOcean Ventures now, I would like to see big, large companies built that are actually sustainable in Switzerland.
Like the next Novartis, Roche, and the very big companies in health tech.
No, well, let's say Stroman, Synthes, Mattis, Ipsomed, these kind of stories. We need more.
What's your best valuation method for early stage startups?
Assessing the team. It's a mix between top down, going from the exit value back, from the cash flow method up, and marry these two.
What are some tips for balancing work and life?
Do what you like and like what you do.
Okay. What will be your best advice for someone starting in venture capital?
I think you don't start in venture capital. I think it's venture capital eventually end up.
Okay, so that's for raising a fund. If someone wants to raise a fund,
it's difficult because what you need to raise a fund is somebody with substantial money that believes in you. Once you have your anchor investor, then you can start to raise more.
What would you say is your biggest mistake as a venture capitalist?
Maybe that we put always the constraints on the entrepreneurs that they actually have to exit.
Instead of scaling big.
Yeah. Because this is an inherent problem. A fund must exit.
Who is your role model in the venture capital world?
I do not have a specific name, but I had the privilege to meet some of the venture capitalists in the Silicon Valley, and have to say some of these guys, when I see a guy, original Russian, and then first he's a PhD in physics, then he became a heart surgeon, and then he created 20 companies, and to meet people like that is really impressive. I think a lot about what kind of advice I can give, because my kids are now 15 and 16 years old.
Yes.
And I think, first of all, it's not something you can cover in one sentence, but it's a long discussion and interaction. There should be a lot of emotion and fingertips involved. As I would say, the simplest message I could give is, I would not say try and error, but doing is more important than thinking. Do, think, learn, do again, think, learn. Life is a spiral, and you better take something from everything you did. Mm-hmm. Even if you think of Jeff Bezos, if you look from the end of the story, well, how did he create these great companies? Even Bezos tried so many things, and eventually one thing worked. And
worked really well.
Others who did great things, they failed later on. I think it's also important that you can fail at any moment in time. You can not only fail at the beginning and fail later on. When Google was founded, Yahoo was $1 billion company.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show, Thomas. I really, really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, everybody who stayed all the way till the end of episode 177. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great Monday and a great week, and I'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Hi, I'm Gennady Mann, Casco to Go AG, We develop disruption for car insurance industry. Tell you about that next week with Cedric. See you on Monday.